We play with the swagger, we play with the confidence. We're not afraid to body, we're not afraid to push the boundaries a little bit. We'll back it up with their play, they'll be salty, they'll say a bunch of stuff, but we'll hopefully let the W dictate.
On a sunny Saturday night in Jacksonville, Florida, a great AUDL rivalry reunites. The Raleigh Flyers at 6-1, the Jacksonville Cannons at 5-1, first place in the South Division. On the line tonight from the Bulls School. Hi everybody, Evan Lepler alongside Taylor Pope. It's so good to have you with us. These teams have produced so many great games through the years. Before they had a 7-point game in April, the previous 6 meetings were decided by just 12 goals. We expect something like that tonight. And Taylor, both these teams coming off a signature win last week as they knocked off the defending champs, Dallas.
You know, Evan, it's interesting. Both of these teams coming into this game as a make-or-break game. The mindsets, though, I think are totally different. Raleigh coming in, winning 4 out of the last 5 of these matchups. Kind of matter-of-fact business mentality, whereas I think we're going to see Jacksonville playing a very emotional game. I think they have a chip on their shoulder, and I think it's going to be a great one.
Well, the Cannons have a really tough schedule coming up. They know they need this one on their home field tonight. There are a lot of superstars on both these teams. For Jacksonville, the AUDL's leading goal scorer last year, Misha Freystadter. Jonathan Nethercutt for Raleigh had 13 assists last week. But let's talk about this young playmaker for the Raleigh Flyers. Just 20 years old, Jacob Fairfax. He had 6 goals last week for Raleigh. He's been their #1 guy in plus-minus.
Jacob Fairfax, when you look at him, he is a pure receiver in every sense of the word. His timing is impeccable, and he high points the disc like no other. I expect they're going to be matching him up with Jakeem Polk tonight. It's going to be a matchup for the ages with these two incredible athletes.
Well, when Raleigh came to Jacksonville last time, they lived by the huck, and most of them were beautiful. Since then, their assistant coach, David Allison, said they've just relied on hucking it, throwing it up in the air for Fairfax to go make the play.
I think they're going to try to get away from floating the disc against Jacksonville. Against Dallas, they're a little bit of a shorter team, but Jacksonville has the height to really match up with Raleigh. So I think that we're going to see much more direct shots.
The Jacksonville Cannons are without their leading receiver, Jeremy Langdon, tonight, but they do have Cole Sullivan, a guy who certainly plays with some attitude and some swagger. And Taylor, they moved him downfield, and he's been doing some damage in the end zone consequently.
Cole Sullivan is a big body, and he uses his body. He was a wrestler. He played football in high school. He uses his body extremely well to get position and allow himself to get open without having to work super hard. He also has the throws to open up the field extremely well.
Bobby Lay, Tyler Kunza, and a couple others will be the primary handlers for Jacksonville, with Cole Sullivan doing work downfield. He's very dangerous, obviously, throwing deep, too. It's a beautiful night for Ultimate. The Plastic Flies in Jacksonville when we return.
Hi, I'm Jonas Larakis, and I'm the operations manager of Boone Technical Clothing here in the United States. I lost my mom last 2014 to breast cancer. She was 54 years old. It was pretty tough for me because I wasn't able to help her or have the kind of knowledge to be able to do something about the situation. I learned about Eric, about Jim's vision, about his organization, and I want to be part of it, not only as an ultimate player, but also a son to my mom. I think one thing that early recognition is critical helped me was to be able to reach out to other people who are still having the chance or privilege to do something about the cancer within their family or like friends. I think that's what Eric is all about. It's just not within the sport, it goes on and off the field. If you volunteer, even though it's only you can be able to inspire and aspire other people to help the movement. And you never know, people are just waiting to be reached out to, and they're only waiting for you.
Early recognition is critical. Teaches middle school PE classes about ultimate Frisbee and cancer symptom awareness.
We're a registered nonprofit that advocates for an active, healthy lifestyle, body awareness, and speaking up if something is wrong.
Skills that when it comes to cancer can help save a life. Ultimate is a fast-paced team sport that's self-refereed, non-contact, and co-ed.
Spirit of the game is the foundation of Ultimate. That means we communicate respectfully, we're fair-minded, and we enjoy the game.
Ultimate is accessible to everyone. All you need is a Frisbee and some friends. Our team of coaches is made up of experienced and passionate leaders from the Ultimate community.
We can come to your middle school and run your PE classes for the day. And if we're not in your area yet, we'll send you our clinic in a box, where we give you the resources to run your own.
We are Eric!
And we want to work with you and your school.
This piece with Eric is amazing to me. It's right in line with what we think is critical for kids, and that is to know their bodies.
The kids have really gotten into having speakers here that aren't just their teachers.
And I think the clinicians did a fantastic job. All the kids were engaged, none of them were distracted. They seemed to get into it right away.
I just want to reach out to Eric and tell him, thank you for coming and sharing the message that our kids can speak up. Early recognition is critical, and I look forward to doing more things with Eric in the future.
It's been great for us as a staff and for our students to experience the message you guys have, and highly recommend it for any school that has the opportunity.
The Raleigh Flyers and the Jacksonville Cannons getting set for ultimate battle. Jacksonville's only loss in the regular season thus far came against Raleigh back on April 15th. The Raleigh Flyers' only loss in the regular season came back in April against Dallas. Of course, both these teams beat the Dallas Roughnecks last week. And Taylor, while Atlanta and Austin play later tonight as well in Texas, it looks like a three-team race in this South Division. There are 3 playoff spots up for grabs, of course, but The number 1 seed only has to play 1 playoff game to make it to the championship weekend in Montreal, and if they're the number 1 seed, they get to stay at home.
Yeah, that number 1 seed is oh so critical. I think not only that you have the bye, but you also get that home field advantage. Just like you said, it's a critical game tonight, and both teams realize that they're in the driver's seat with a win. Jacksonville has to go and face Dallas on the road. Raleigh still has to play Jacksonville 2 more times after tonight, so anything can happen. But I think we're going to see one of these 2 teams separate themselves from the pack tonight.
It's going to be interesting to watch this Jacksonville offensive line that is without Misha Freistatter, at least at the start. Freistatter has been moved to the defense. We'll talk about that as the game progresses. And also no Jeremy Langdon tonight, the Cannons' leading goal scorer, so the 7 on the line for Jacksonville. You see Chris Gibson on the left, Cole Sullivan in the middle, and Bobby Lay, who has played very, very well for Jacksonville so far this year, out there with Tyler Kunsa, Travis Catron, Jordan Huston, who had 6 goals last week against Dallas, and Michael Fairley, who's moving to the O-line this week, the young man out of Central Florida.
Raleigh starting the game a little bit backing, forcing Jacksonville to play their conservative style.
Noah Saul plays the opening D point. He's on Sullivan.
Noah Saul coming off of a little bit of a banged up knee. It's gotten better over the past couple weeks, but he's been out for a few weeks.
Gibson's throw intended for Fairley, incomplete, and an early chance to break for the Raleigh D-line. Liam Searles Bowes, the 18-year-old, the reset handler, but Saul initiates to Justin Allen. This is Shane Sisko. On the under, great diving grab by Jeff Nordgren. Nordgren's throw into the turf. Conservation of greatness on the first point for the Wolfman.
Yeah, and he looked backfield. You know, in that situation, you definitely want to see him go ahead and commit to his dump instead of looking inside to force that difficult throw.
Catron back to Sullivan. Pivots into the backhand for the goal. Michael Fairley with a clap catch, 1-0. Jacksonville in front. So each team turns it over once on the first point. Now we'll get our first look at the Flyers' offensive line.
I'm really curious to see how both of these 2 teams come out. It is extremely hot right now. They've been warming up for about an hour on that turf, and we both know that that turf elevates the temperature at least 10 to 15 degrees. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit of a sluggish start before these teams both get in their groove.
Jacksonville has certainly changed its collective mindset, especially offensively. But adding Misha Freistatter, the 6'7" tower who scored 95 goals last year, to the defensive line has changed what this D-line is capable of, especially after a turn.
Yeah, we're going to see probably right away Misha Freistatter matching up on Jonathan Nethercutt, and it's going to be up to Raleigh to see how they adjust to that. We saw Freistatter have tremendous success against Malachek, against Dallas, and his ability to kind of limit the impact that Brandon was able to have. And we'll see after a 13-goal game by Jonathan Nethercutt whether Freistatter is able to have that same impact against Raleigh.
Nethercutt had the 13 assists last weekend against Dallas. It was an incredible display of marksmanship. Had the greatest early in the fourth quarter. That was truly the play of the day. Slow going so far for the Raleigh Flyers, and a contact call on the mark. And actually going to go against Raleigh. So Nethercutt will retreat the 10 yards. Out there for the Raleigh offense with Nethercutt, Noah Saul, Dave Snoke, the veteran handler, along with Jacob Fairfax, Terrence Mitchell, Goose Helton, and Matt Bode. Helton took off downfield underneath to Mitchell. And this has been about 60 seconds, and they're not across midfield, Taylor.
Raleigh doing a good job of, playing with composure, swinging the disc back and forth, but Jacksonville certainly limiting the looks downfield.
And Bode looking for his former high school teammate. It's Saul in the end zone for the Flyers.
That sun kind of coming straight over the stands onto the field. Looked like the defender just kind of lost it a little bit. Jakeem Polk trying to make up some ground there, but not close enough.
Saul over Bradley St. John's for the score. It feels like everywhere you look, the Cannons have a tall, lanky defender. This is a team of size. I think in the past, they've struggled at times to match up with Raleigh's speed. Now, you're a big guy. You're certainly not slow. If you were guarding someone who was smaller than you but a little quicker, what would your mindset be?
Well, it's all about positioning. You're trying to force them to a dead spot on the field, using your body, using your positioning to try to push them either to the sideline or to the middle of the field, depending on what your team is trying to do in that given point. That was a beautiful break through the double team by Cole Sullivan.
Floaty throw, and Gibson and Goff both came down with it. Gibson takes it, tie goes to the offense, and then slicing through to Fairley. So it takes Jacksonville just 25 seconds to punch it down the field. Second goal for Fairley.
This is a slightly different roster for Raleigh than we saw just last week. They've added David Richardson, who's just back from his honeymoon, getting married on the 5th, and Noah Saul, who was inactive for the last game due to injury.
Yeah, Richardson was in Aruba earlier this week and then into the honeymoon to return for this critical South Division matchup. Winner of this game is in first place all by themselves, the midway point of the AUDL season. Nethercutt's going downfield right now, and on the under gains yards against Freystater.
And we're already seeing Jonathan Nethercutt have to work a little bit harder than he's used to get the disc against Freystater. Not to mention how much a mark like Misha Freystater can impose on Nethercutt to limit his ability to throw it deep.
Oh, there's a tough drop on the far sideline.
And I think that was Lieberman.
A chance for Jacksonville up high in the end zone, and it's Fairfax who comes flying in and takes out Freystater in the process, and Misha is shaken up.
And we're going to see the replay here, but I don't think Freystater knew Fairfax was anywhere in that vicinity, trying to box out Nethercutt, and just kind of got surprised that Fairfax was even there.
That's a tough collision. Two guys going in the opposite direction.
And we'll see what the refs saw on that play. Do you have an early impression, Evan?
Watching it live, I thought Freystater kind of went up over into Freystater's space.
You mean Fairfax, yeah.
Fairfax, yeah, seeing the replay, it looks like Fairfax got the disc cleanly, and it's an unfortunate collision, but I'm more interested in hearing your thoughts.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think Misha was trying to box out Nethercutt, didn't really know that Fairfax was in the vicinity, and so just kind of turned around, and boom, Fairfax is there, again, high pointing the ball. So,
you know, it's bizarre. The opening game of the season for the Jacksonville Cannons, Freystater was ejected after kind of doing what Fairfax just did to Nashville's Ray Davenport. Davenport took the brunt of the hit like Freystater did this time. And when I went back and watched that, I don't necessarily think that Misha deserved to be ejected. It's a good thing to see he appears to be all right.
I think that it's tough sometimes to be the biggest guy on the field. You know, you look at a guy, if we're going to make an NBA correlation, a guy like Dwight Howard back early in his career got so many fouls called on him. LeBron, same thing. You know, just those big guys, they tend to take up space, and the smaller guys just bounce off them.
There's Tuba Benson-Jaja, the third-year head coach of the Cannons, with a lot of Raleigh ties, an old teammate of yours for many, many years.
10 years we played together.
I learned last night, and they are going to give Raleigh the disc. It will belong to Fairfax. Apparently, you guys, I don't know if it was a skirmish, but one of you guys ended up with a chipped tooth when you were first playing together?
That was the last day of tryouts, and I'm going for a disc, and Tuba lays out completely over the top of me.
Looking deep for Bode, a majestic shot from Nethercutt, and it's knocked away by Jacksonville's James Kerner. And it looks like they're going to call interference. Kerner says he committed the foul, and Bode will keep the disc.
Well, back briefly to that story. Tuba lays out on top of me, and yes, a porcelain veneer just chips right off. So I'm 23 years old, just moved to Raleigh, and I have now a $1,000 dental bill. But I made the team, and so did Tuba, so friends after that.
The price you pay. Nethercutt slips it through to Snoke, the equalizer. Just under 5 minutes gone here in the first quarter.
We're seeing both these teams kind of off to a sluggish start. You know, if we were to compare the first quarter so far to game of the week against Dallas, we already had 5 or 6 goals by now. Both teams scoring within 10, 20 seconds. This one feels much more methodical. Both teams trying to limit the deep shots.
Well, it does seem like Jacksonville has done some things to disrupt Raleigh's offense early on. And they really struggled against Raleigh defensively last time around. Jacksonville had 5 Ds in the first quarter of that game and then none the rest of the night. They didn't get a single deflection in the final 3 quarters on their home field. It was too easy for Raleigh that night. Justin Allen getting ready to pull. It's great awareness last week by Allen to go to the end zone as he saw Jonathan Nethercutt approaching that pylon in Raleigh for the greatest.
Oh, yeah.
Allen's defender, Chris Mazer, went to the disc, said afterwards, I should have stayed with Allen. Fairly a big body, 6'4". Catron on the under to Gibson. Chris, the younger brother of Dallas's Kurt Gibson, who's out with an injury right now.
I had the opportunity to play with him for 1 or 2 years. And
Chris?
Chris, just a great guy. I remember in a huge tournament, him getting a D on Bo Kittredge that pretty much sealed the game for us. It was amazing. It's
a notch in your belt for sure. Not
Absolutely.
too many people can say that. There was a drop by Huston. And then Searles Bose throws behind his intended target, which was Nordgren. Catron lays out for the D. And then just another badly thrown disc, a turfed backhand from Gibson. Danny Schmidt gets the reset for Allen. And around to Searles Bose. We have not had a break yet midway through the first quarter. Both teams have had chances, and here Raleigh with another. Richardson, oh, he thought about it. He's much more of a cutter and a defender than he is a thrower. He had Nordgren, who had 5 or 6 steps.
And you're starting to see the disc kind of popping up and down just a little bit.
And there's the assist from Richardson. Justin Allen with a claw grab for the Raleigh break.
You know David Richardson just loves stepping out to make that throw. He's the kind of player that, you know, everyone, when he makes a throw downfield, everyone kind of cheers because he's sort of set up to be throwing dumps most of the time since he's such an impressive downfield receiver. But he's been working on his throws so much in the offseason, and seeing him make one of those is great to see.
Here's a tough drop by Huston, and Raleigh able to pay it off. It's a tough catch by Allen in the end zone with Fairley laying out right behind him. So Raleigh with the game's first break. It comes with 5:03 remaining in the opening quarter. Raleigh has won 6 of their 8 all-time meetings with Jacksonville. And as we mentioned at the open, so many of them have been close. 3 of them have gone to overtime. 2 of them have gone to double overtime, including the South Division Championship game 2 years ago. There was an offensive offsides call on this pull. Jacksonville leaving the line too early. A careless error, which is going to force them to start halfway into their own end zone.
Look at the respect Misha Freistadter has with Nate Goff. About a 10-yard backing going on.
Sullivan launches a backhand. And Chris LaRocque runs it down. To space, Freistadter got it. 90 yards and 2 throws in 18 seconds.
And that's what, you know, Raleigh wasn't even really giving them the deep ball. They were forcing them in, and Cole Sullivan just puts out a dime ball. Misha Freistadter knowing that, you know, he's got to be trailing that play, and just, that was an impressive throw by Sullivan.
And LaRocque, who played with the Raleigh Flyers last year, rejoined Jacksonville this season and dishes the assist to the speedy Central Florida alum Misha Freistadter.
And that was no slouch on D. That was Noah Saul guarding Chris LaRocque. It'll be interesting to see. This is his first game back after being injured, I believe, in the Austin Seoul game.
Center to Nethercutt with Freistadter on the mark. It was Tuba Benson Jaja's idea to put Misha on defense. And the reasoning was he basically didn't feel like Misha was having tons of fun. Good defensive pressure from Jacksonville and a chance to break back. That is into the hands of Bradley St. John's. Back on serve as the Cannons retake the 4-3 lead. Early in the season, Taylor, Freistadter felt so much pressure to duplicate the goal-scoring magic of a year ago. And the Cannons just weren't really in groove. Tuba didn't think his player was having fun, so he took him aside, said, look, I'm gonna move you to defense. And Tuba said, 1, Freistadter's the most unselfish guy on the team. 2, he's been having a blast, helping to get breaks.
Well, and you watch that point develop before Jacksonville got the turn, and it's not always going to be that Freistadter is getting a hand block or getting the D himself, but his mere presence on Nethercutt changes the way that Raleigh's offense plays downfield. And you see Nethercutt having to throw a dump when traditionally he's the centering pass. He's going to throw it upfield to somebody. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Raleigh offense adapts in another turnover.
Snoke and Fairfax miscommunicating. Hickson picks up quickly to Bullock. This is Andrew Carlton. And a poach D from Snoke. And there was contact that prevented the savvy move from coming to fruition.
I was just about to say, I can't tell you how many times I've seen Dave Snoke get that same exact D. His awareness on the field is just incredible. But this is an important moment for Jacksonville. They can gain a little bit of momentum in this first quarter. They can really apply some pressure to Raleigh.
Important catch there from Mike Fioramonte. And then Jacksonville with the mistake in the red zone. Nethercutt airs it out, and that disc is not going to hang up. So Nethercutt has matched his turnover total from last week.
Well, you see on that very throw, what happened? The disc was outside in. And what that means is that he's having to throw around Misha. He can't get that inside upwind throw that he wants to do.
That 50-50 toss just kind of hung up there out of the hands of Fioramonte. Defended well in the end zone by the crowd. We've had our fair share of these back and forth points. Not the cleanest of ultimate. We should mention the wind is a factor. It's blowing across the field from far to near. Typically here in Jacksonville, I think it usually dies down as the evening progresses.
Yeah, we're seeing Raleigh going upwind right now, and so those inside-out throws where you're angling the disc down is oh so critical, but you're just not able to do that as effectively when you have a big mark on you.
Nethercutt looking for Fairfax. Oh, wide open, and he dropped it. That's guaranteed to be in the AUDL not top 10 this week. We've all been there. No one feels worse about it than Fairfax, who lost his focus, but Jacksonville just continues to do Raleigh favors. That was Brandon Perales just launching a poorly thrown huck. Stall count rising on Snoke, and the Flyers can't capitalize. This point is begging for a timeout. And you said it, it's a chance for Jacksonville to break late in the first quarter. Holy cow. Hickson keeps it alive. Freystatter through the contact.
I know Coach Tuba Benson-Jaja trusts his D unit out here, but do you put the offense on the field after 3 or 4 turnovers?
Freystatter's played a ton of offense, able to swing the disc. Ryan Chard. And Fioramonte's throw deflected by Nethercutt, kept alive by Perales. And that shot will find its target in the end zone.
That was a good find. The absolute last guy in the stack, finding the open space, and Brandon Perales just putting that cross field.
Ryan Chard ran to the space, and the Cannons, after a point that lasted almost 4 minutes, capitalizes on the Fairfax muff.
You know, one of the sayings that I've always loved, and this comes from Atlanta, but body blows. And, you know, when each team is going all the way down the field, getting near the end zone and turning it over, and they're going back and forth on these long points, those are body blows to the opposing team. And if you can score that point, you really set yourself up for gaining some momentum.
Raleigh Flyers will receive the disc to start the second quarter. They can score here, and then they'll tie it up. Easier said than done, with just 3 goals so far in 11.5 minutes. Raleigh had 9 first quarter goals against Dallas last week. Looking long for Cisco. On his horse, and it will be out of his reach.
Shane Cisco, an incredibly hard receiver to outthrow. It's worth noting the temperature on the field. 82 degrees air temperature, meaning it's got to be 10 to 15 degrees hotter out there on the field.
Yeah, the turf holds that heat well. The Cannons closed the first quarter on a 3-0 rally. They trailed 3-2 after Justin Allen's catch on the break. And then they scored 3 straight back-to-back breaks to take a 5-3 lead after 1 here in Jacksonville. Raleigh 3. 1 down, 3 to go here on a Saturday night in Florida. AUDL plus-minus leaders after week 7, Jay Fruit of Dallas and Dylan Freechild of the Roughnecks. First and second, Jeremy Langdon of Jacksonville not playing tonight. He's been excellent so far this year. And how about what San Jose's Jeremy Norden has done for the biggest surprise of the league, the Spiders. The most impressive thing about what they've done, Taylor, so far this season, they're 5-1, and their 5 wins have come against every other team in their division. They've already beaten everyone once. Raleigh with a disc to start quarter number 2. Snoke, Nethercutt, and Saul the handlers. Fairfax, Mitchell, Bode, and Helton downfield. Pretty quiet first quarter for Goose Helton.
Pretty quiet quarter for everybody. 3-5 is not a typical AUDL score, very low scoring. You know, you and I talked to Tuba Benson Jaja and was asking him, you know, what type of message are you going to give your players before this game? And he said, you know, I'm going to walk into the locker room and take the pulse of the room, and I'll either figure out if I need to pump them up or chill them out. Well, I went up to him before the game and I said, you know, what were your players like? And he said, chill, chill. And you can kind of see on the field, there's been this sort of lulling of energy out there by Jacksonville. And, you know, it's translated to us into a sloppy game, but you wonder if Jacksonville isn't just trying to lull Raleigh and take them out of their game plan.
Well, there's been a renewed commitment to discipline from Jacksonville on both sides of the disc. And, you know, last night, Tuba Benson said the Raleigh loss was kind of the best thing that happened to him, as Nethercutt's shot will air way too far, intended for Saul.
He's flustered.
Let's go, Cannons.
Well, if you had a 6'7" guy who's as fast as Freystarter guarding you, you might be flustered too.
Now, my wingspan is 6'9", so that helps a little bit. But yes, definitely.
Freystarter misfiring on the drop by Kerner. Mitchell floats it to Fairfax and rising it to Helton. Fairfax to Helton. That's a circuitous hold after 2 minutes and 10 seconds for the Flyers. I think Jacksonville wanted to come into this game with a mindset of intensity, and they wanted to embrace this rivalry, which I think is better than any other in the league right now, but they didn't want to be distracted by it. There's been lots of chatter in social media this past week about what kind of team Jacksonville is. And they have just tried to keep everything in-house and try to do their talking on the field.
Right, and you know, I think that Jacksonville definitely feels that the style of play that they feel like they're putting on the field has not been you know, acknowledged by the Ultimate community. I think that they feel like there's been a little bit of a double standard as far as their physical product and what other teams are doing. So far this game, we've seen, you know, a fairly clean game. You know, one possibly questionable bid, but other than that, I think, you know, both teams are just out there playing hard.
Bobby Lay, very slippery handler out of the University of Florida. Back to Sullivan. Now, Lay and Sullivan work well together. They've got very different styles of their business.
Right. I was just about to say that, you know, having Sullivan more upfield increases the speed at which Jacksonville is playing with their handlers. You know, Sullivan is looking at the end zone every time he gets the disc.
Yep.
And when he has it, he's gonna take that extra second to just check and make sure that there's not something that he can hit because of his range. And some of these other guys that he's playing with now, they're just looking to move the disc side to side and hit these easy unders and let the cutters be the ones who are throwing the ball deep. And so far, it's been paying off for them. They look smooth.
This time Sullivan and Lay working very well, and then Jordan Huston gets open in the end zone.
And what it does too for a guy like Sullivan is it gets him into that rhythm of his offensive unit. So he's gonna start moving the disc a little bit faster as well. And you know, we're seeing that.
Sullivan had 55 assists 2 years ago and then had 82. Best in the league last year. Many of them were to Freistatter, of course. But it was not the season the Cannons were hoping for as a team, as that shot by Helton tipped and then caught. Run down in the end zone by Jacob Mao and David Snokel. Helton will get credit for the assist.
You know, Evan, I think to your point, Jacksonville not having the kind of season they wanted to have last year, that is a product of relying so heavily on Sullivan and Freistatter. It makes them entirely too one-dimensional when you have two of your guys leading both of those stat categories. You know, distributing the load like they are this year increases the, you know, what the defense has to plan for. So I think we've seen a much more dynamic Jacksonville Cannons team.
Jonathan Helton had 6 assists and 3 goals last week in the win against Dallas. Fortunate on that put right there. Cannons back on offense. 8:30 remaining here in the second quarter. Evan Lepler with Taylor Pope at the Bowles School, the home of the Cannons. This is week 8 of the American Ultimate Disc League 2017. A season that has brought more surprises than maybe the first 5 years of this professional league all put together. Pretty good downfield defense here and equally good patience from Jacksonville.
And I was just about to say, Jacksonville having a very difficult time getting it off of the backhand side, the righty backhand side.
Tough catch
Finally
by
swinging
Lay.
the disc.
Bobby Lay, a member of that U23 USA Open team in 2015, as David Richardson shows off his Jets. Gets the deflection on the under. You can feel that coming. Hartzog keeps it alive on the sideline. Looks off the reset and gains yardage to Schmidt. Richardson secures the bookends, and Raleigh with a break to tie it at 6.
Great use of his body there on the catch. You see so many players want to go up with the near hand in that situation. He used his body to maintain that separation, allowing time for the disc to reach his right hand. Beautiful use of body awareness by David Richardson. And a nice throw by Danny Schmidt. I think that he put that disc in a place where only D-Rich was going to get it.
Hartzog getting it to Schmidt, and then when you get a D, you want to pay it off. And Richardson, who was married a few weeks ago, his new bride Leah. Richardson, a former college tennis player, and just a special kind of athlete who actually broke his arm at the very first Raleigh Flyers tryout. LaRocque takes a shot, Bode sizing up the D, but it soars over the Raleigh defender. And it's Travis Catron with the score for the Cannons. It looked like Bode had it, but Catron read it better.
It'll be interesting to see the contact on this catch. I think this is the same type of play that Jacksonville has been taking some heat for. Great grab.
Catron out of the University of Florida as well. So is Dustin Travaglini, who's getting ready to pull for Jacksonville.
You know, the message Tuba Benson had for his team last week was no fear. This week, he said the message is going to be composure. Do you think we've seen that out of the Cannons tonight so far?
I think there have been some physical mistakes, but you haven't seen too many mental mistakes from Jacksonville. So in that sense, I think you have seen composure from the Cannons so far. You know, it's interesting, through the years, there's been talk about how Florida Ultimate statewide has been somewhat divided, and Tuba Benson has gotten some credit from folks from all different pockets of the state of bringing Florida players, Central Florida players, Florida State players together. And this Cannons team has been a great boon for that community. Justin Allen on the under. They're going to test Polk, looking to Fairfax. And what a catch by Jacob Fairfax by the sideline.
And I'll tell you what, that's about the only way that you're going to get open on Jakeem Polk is by putting a toe tapper on the sideline.
This is a tough needle to thread.
And even then, he was very close.
You're wondering, would Polk get there? You're wondering, would it stay in bounds? And Fairfax makes the catch. Those two guys were teammates last year in the Charlotte Express.
You know, I talked to Jakeem Polk before the game, and I said, you know, what do you want your fans to know? And he said, I just want them to know that you may not see a whole lot of talking, but you're going to see a whole bunch of walking tonight. And we really haven't seen that yet, but I'm expecting a couple plays like that are going to ignite a fire in him that's going to lead to some of that greatness.
Well, he's a guy who didn't have a ton of ultimate experience before he tried out for the Charlotte Express last year and made several jaw-dropping plays in his first AUDL season. He was one of the guys that Tuba Benson Jaja really targeted in the offseason. As Lay uncorks long, looking for Carlton. Muniz interfered. Jacksonville will have the disc on the goal line.
Charlie Muniz a little bit discouraged that he had that call, but I think anytime you get the sort of shack smack at the disc, it's just begging for a contact call.
Discontended for Huston rather than Carlton, and Huston, Florida State product, will pick up the assist. Tyler Kunsa with a score, and it's 8-7 Cannons. It's a really close play there between Huston and Muniz. Raleigh's Charlie Muniz looked like he thought he had it.
Really the problem for Muniz there is he never really got inside position on the receiver, trying to get the D from the backside. You're either going to get contact, or you know he's going to get to the disc first. So
it's a great look at before the disc arrived. Muniz had his hand on Huston's shoulder, and that I think is enough for the interference call. Raleigh back on offense. Can they counter punch?
Evan, we call that climbing the ladder. Using the shoulder rung.
Interesting to note, no Jakeem Polk on the field for this deep point for the Cannons. And the foul called against Char, Jacob Mao. Young UNC product was hit. It's Fun matchup between Nethercutt and Freystadter. Nethercutt juggling catch to keep it alive. To Snoke. To the end zone. Another goal for Jacob Mao.
Jacob Mao, one of those guys that just finds the open spaces on the field, you know, tends to maybe not draw the toughest matchup defensively, and really uses that to his advantage to quietly find these little spaces to get open. Great field awareness.
That was not much of a cut. It was just kind of a step, and all of a sudden, the disc was coming right at his chest.
You know, he's one of those guys that, you know, you don't really notice him during the game, but then at the end of the game, all of a sudden he's got 7 or 8 goals. I think there was one game last season where he notched close to 10.
Whistle called right as the pull was being released. And perhaps one of the officials was communicating with Mike DeNardis, the Flyers coach, on the far sideline. So I'm not sure they had been given the signal to initiate the next point. This officiating crew with Drew McGee leading the way, Dan West, Ariel Stepniak, and Scott Shirley with Tyler Luxna on the clock. This is the second of 4 regular season meetings between these two teams. The first 2 here in Jacksonville. Of course, Raleigh won the first one back in April. And these 2 squads will meet a couple weeks from now in Raleigh, and then 3 weeks after that in the capital of North Carolina.
It's certainly important for Jacksonville to, you know, keep it close, maybe go up a couple breaks early in this game, because you can't underestimate what the 6-hour drive from Raleigh to Jacksonville does for the legs of these guys.
You've made that drive before.
Definitely. And early in the game, it's exceptionally hard to get moving up to speed. But as it progresses, it's going to be much easier for them to find their legs, especially this is a one game weekend for both of these teams.
This is Lay. Back to Sullivan with Allen on the mark.
They're not getting any looks to the break side off of their swings. And there was the first continuation.
Tough catch made by Kunsa, but he paid the price. Kunsa and Searles Bose both back up on their feet. And Kunsa is going to take an injury.
Traditionally, the Raleigh Flyers and Coach Mike DeNardis have forced backhand. You know, that's the righty backhand for Jacksonville, trying to limit Cole Sullivan's flick, and you know Jacksonville has some other guys that are able to throw good flicks. But we're not seeing Jacksonville continue the disc to the break side. We're seeing them kind of get pigeonholed onto that backhand side a lot.
LaRock back to Lay. Allen comes with a double team. Lay scoobers over it to Sullivan. Richardson bids, but Jacksonville scores. Richardson was right there, but just an inch shy as Huston secures the goal for the Cannons.
And I know Cole Sullivan is trying to get that disc out quick, but I just cannot stand the backhand in that situation. He could easily have stood up, thrown an outside-in flick into his receiver.
How did he squeeze that in there?
Call me old school.
Maybe a lefty backhand?
That'd be confidence.
So Huston with the goal, just barely. Certainly heard the footsteps.
I mean, what did Coach Benson say about Cole Sullivan? Just a guy that walks around with swag. Certainly a lefty backhand there would have been swag.
Well, I think that swagger, that is certainly not simply isolated to Sullivan. There are other guys in the Cannons that play and have that swagger too. Matt Bode rising up through 2 defenders for the goal. And he's shaken up on the play. Kerner and Polk were the 2 defenders. Tough catch by Bode, the former Cannon, another guy who plays with a swagger.
Definitely contact on the play. We'll see, take a closer look to see.
And he got drilled by Polk's elbow. Those 2 guys were teammates on Charlotte last year.
You know, nothing malicious there. Definitely looked like, you know, some contact. He's going for the disc. You know, whether or not, you know, you have to continue that arm.
Nothing malicious, but that has to be unsportsmanlike. It's, as Greg Popovich said about the Zaza Pachulia Kawhi Leonard play, intent doesn't matter. If you drill a guy in the face as he's making a catch, it should be an unsportsmanlike foul. And he has been assessed an unsportsmanlike flagrant foul. So you get 1 more of those and you are ejected.
And a show of sportsmanship from the Jacksonville O-line, taking a knee on the goal line, waiting for Matt Bode to get up.
Bode up on his feet, dousing himself with water. It's a good way to wake up after a shot in the head.
He's all right.
So it's 9-all. 3 minutes, 7 seconds remaining in this first half. Jacksonville received to begin. The teams traded for the first 4 goals. Raleigh got a break to make it 3-2. Jacksonville got back-to-back breaks after tying it at 3. It was 5-3 Cannons at the end of 1. Here in this second quarter, the Flyers tied it up 6-all, and we've been trading each of the last 6 goals. So the unsportsmanlike will allow Raleigh to pull 20 yards outside of the end zone. Last time Jacksonville was backed up this deep, they scored in 2 throws.
Raleigh looking like they're playing a little bit of a shell here.
Underneath to Catron. You know, so far tonight, I think you'd have to say Jacksonville has done a decent job of playing without their number 1 3-cutter, the guy who typically initiates downfield, Jeremy Langdon. There was contact on the catch. Clock continues to tick. Around 2.5 minutes remaining in the second quarter.
The Raleigh Flyers certainly doing a good job of applying pressure. All of these throws are contested.
Muniz, a lot of contact, and they call it. Catron marches off 10 yards. Catron, who scored 29 goals in 2015. He scored 32 goals last year. Back to Lay. Sullivan. Pestered by Hartzog. He'll take the easy swing. Huston to Sullivan. Jacksonville at 5-1. Raleigh at 6-1. First place on the line, and Jacksonville reaches double digits first.
Up into that last end zone shot, Jacksonville showing tremendous composure. content to swing the disc back and forth, despite some good poaches from Raleigh.
I think this is the type of composure that Tuba Benson-Jaja wanted to see when he talked to his team before the game.
You know, it's really exemplified in this moment right here where Cole Sullivan has the disc. You know, he wants to throw a goal, but no, I'm just going to throw a dump and let my teammate take care of it. You know, that's a different Jacksonville Cannons than we're used to.
Well, they talked about last year, after they were eliminated from playoff contention, they did go stat hunting a bit. They wanted to get Misha the goal scoring record. They wanted to give Sullivan as many assists as they could. But the mindset changed, I think, the day after last season ended for this Cannons club. They were going to be all about winning. They tried to recruit more and more players. And you talk about the fact they added Langdon from Dallas. Mike Hickson, who missed last year as he was in firefighter school, returns this season. Tyler Kunsa comes from Pittsburgh. Chris LaRock and Jordan Huston rejoined the team after playing last year with Raleigh.
And when you add guys like that with experience, it does so much for your team.
This intended for Terrence Mitchell. And it was almost caught by Justin Allen. And instead, with 50 seconds remaining in the half, Jacksonville has a chance to break, and timeout called from the Cannon sideline. First timeout called by Jacksonville of the half, and we will take it to 49 seconds on the clock. Jacksonville with a lead and the disc.
Mazer with the flick huck, looking for Stanley Peterson in the end zone. It's Stanley with the layout grab.
Air Force One.
They've added a few seconds onto the clock. 53 for Sullivan and company. Sullivan, Lay, Catron, Fairley, Kunsa, LaRock, and Huston on the field for Jacksonville. Richardson, Goff, Cisco, Nethercutt, Allen, Schmidt, and Hartzog.
You know, I love that timeout call by Tuba Benson, but do you just go ahead and throw Freistatter out there? Last point of the half, possibly. Just if anything, to change what
Sullivan's throw was impacted by an aggressive mark of Hartzog, and Jacksonville will keep the disc. What do you think of the handler matchups from Raleigh? Schmidt on Lay and Hartzog on Sullivan.
Well, Hartzog is he's not shy for using his body. He's a very physical player, you know, and he's got good size to him. I think part of the strategy Mike DeNardis has for a guy like Sullivan is just, you know, try your best to wear him out. And, you know, we want to get him a little bit flustered. Mike DeNardis is definitely trying to get him a little bit flustered and shooting the ball.
They've added time to the clock, 45 seconds. There was the contact foul from Hartzog, and then they announced an unsportsmanlike foul on Allen. Not sure if they meant to say Hartzog or not, but now Lay looking long. This one to the back of the end zone and caught. Mike Fairley in his first game on the O-line, playing to the camera as the Cannons take a 2-score lead. Lay was calling for it, his second straight assist. Look out, camera. Nathan Goff, we appreciate your consideration near the back of the end zone.
You know, I had a chance to coach NC State against Fairley, and he dominated every aspect of the game for UCF. in the one matchup we had against them, and just a really impressive college athlete and led his team to the victory.
He's had a big first half. He had the first 2 goals for the Cannons, and there's his third. Jacksonville's lead is 2 at 29 seconds. And that throw's intercepted. They tried to force it into Nethercutt. A huge opportunity here for the Cannons. And they throw it away. But Tuba Benson may have called a timeout before the throw, and they credit the Cannons with the timeout.
Incredible.
He was running down the sideline trying to get it off, and they have 1 timeout left with 18 seconds. You might as well use it. This is an opportunity to really take control. That's a satisfying moment for a head coach.
Talk about knowing your unit. He was sprinting down, getting the attention of the sideline official, doing so just in time before the throwaway.
Great D from Travaglini. You can see they wanted to get it to Nethercutt, and Travaglini read it all the way.
You know, you and I were talking to Mike DeNardis and Coach Dave Allison about what they were going to do, expecting Misha to guard Nethercutt, and they said, you know, we're going to send Nethercutt downfield. And so far, that's really played into Jacksonville's strategy because it's kept the disc out of Nethercutt's hands quite as much.
Well, even without Freistatter being very involved since he got shaken up, the Cannons in position to seize a 3-goal lead. Mike DeNardis, kind of the defensive coordinator along with being the head coach. David Allison handles the O, but the D is Mike D's baby. Sullivan. To the end zone. That's an easy score.
Number 18.
Chris LaRock made a bunch of those plays for the Flyers last season.
And it's just far too easy for Jacksonville on offense right now. Raleigh really having a tough time applying pressure.
I mean, that's 2 goals within 10 seconds of one another. They scored the break with 29 seconds left. And then on Raleigh's O point, Jacksonville scores in just 10 seconds with a timeout mixed in too.
And you know, those are the opportunities that Jacksonville in the past has squandered. And now we're seeing them punch those in. The composure statement of this game has shown on the field.
When these two teams played in April, it felt like everything worked for Raleigh. That has not been the case tonight. Defensive pressure has been much better. Nethercutt had a good lane this time. Looking long for Helton. Will it stay in bounds? Helton rising and scoring with 6 seconds to go. What a shot from Nethercutt. And Helton had it all the way.
And that was interesting there. They set Noah Saul up as the 3-cut in the play initiation and then drove him upfield and used Nethercutt to fill that space, which allowed him to get open and get an open throw.
Would have to see it again. I'm not sure how Helton got that wide open downfield against LaRock. I mean, there was a good 10-yard gap. We know LaRock's pretty good in the air. He was only with 5 yards away, might have had a chance to make that play.
And you know, as you watch that replay, you see LaRock slow down a little bit, thinking that disc was going to drop maybe a second or two earlier. And really, he took himself out of position to make that play.
Second assist for Nethercutt. Jacksonville with a chance. Freistatter and Polk both out on the field. Richardson's out there for Raleigh. And the Flyers come up with the D at the buzzer as Fairfax takes care of business. So the Cannons, perhaps they let an opportunity pass by. They could have been up by 3. Another cut to Helton for the final score of the half. But before that, a 3-0 run for Jacksonville. And it's the Cannons up 12-10, and they'll receive the disc to start the third. The AUDL game of the week here on May 13th. That was last week. It's May 20th here in Jacksonville. Cannons 12, Flyers 10. We're at the half.
Hi, I'm Joel Larakis, and I'm the operations manager of Boone Technical Clothing here in the United States. I lost my mom last 2014 to breast cancer. She was 54 years old. It was pretty tough for me because I wasn't able to help her or have the kind of knowledge to be able to do something about the situation. I learned about Eric, about Jim's vision, about his organization, and I want to be part of it. Not only as an ultimate player, but also a son to my mom. I think one thing that early recognition is critical helped me was to be able to reach out to other people who are still having the chance or privilege to do something about the cancer within their family or like friends. I think that's what Eric is all about. It's just not within the sport. It goes on and off the field. If you volunteer, even though it's only you can be able to inspire and aspire other people to help the movement. And you never know. People are just waiting to be reached out to, and they're only waiting for you.
Winner of this game will be in first place at the midway point of the AUDL season. And we're at the midway point of the night with Jacksonville leading Raleigh 12-10. And we welcome you back into our broadcast booth with Taylor Pope, Evan Lepler along with you. A lot to digest in that first half. I think both teams had plays they liked and things they wish they could take back. There was some sloppiness. There were also some great highlights. What are your lasting thoughts on that 24 minutes of ultimate?
You know, definitely a lower scoring game as far as the AUDL standards are concerned. I think that when given the opportunity, Jacksonville has shown a tremendous amount of composure, especially on offense. Raleigh, not really the same, you know, a bunch of sloppy turnovers, throwing into poaches, throwing, you know, bad deep looks, and Jacksonville really taking care of business. Yet, we still have a 2-point game.
Yeah, it's fair to say that defense was really the story of the half, both with some teams making some unforced errors and some forced errors too. I think both Raleigh and Jacksonville have really honed in. These two teams know each other so well too.
Right. It almost feels like one of those divisional games in the NFL where, you know, it's going to be a little bit ugly. It's going to be a little bit of a dogfight. And they're really just kind of sizing each other up for the finish.
Well, every game in the AUDL is a divisional game except for the 4 cross-coast challenge games. 2 weeks from now we'll be in Madison for the Dallas Roughnecks and the Madison Radicals. In the South Division right now, you got Dallas at 6-2, Raleigh 6-1, Jacksonville 5-1 right in the middle. And obviously that number 1 seed is important because these are 3 cities that aren't that close to each other. And whoever has to travel on the road in the playoffs is going to be at a disadvantage. How do you shake up that trio in your head right now?
Well, you know, I think if you ask Dallas, they still think that they're the team to beat. But Raleigh certainly is in the driver's seat with a win tonight. You know, I think that we both agree that Jacksonville going to Dallas is going to be a difficult ask of them to come away with that win on the road. But I think that should they get the win tonight, they should have the confidence going into the weekend.
After tonight, Jacksonville has a lot of games on the road. They still have 5 road games, whereas after tonight, Raleigh will only have 2. And the Dallas Roughnecks, after they go to Madison, they'll be in Texas for the rest of the year, either at home or in Austin. Every divisional race is pretty captivating. In the East, you've got so many teams with 2 losses. There isn't a team with 1 loss. In the Midwest, you have the only undefeated team in the league, the Minnesota Wind Chill, and obviously out west, the San Jose Spiders and the Seattle Cascades. I'm not sure too many people predicted those 2 teams to be in first place.
You know, I think as the league is maturing and more players are getting involved with the league, I think we're just seeing a lot more parity as these programs are developing. and it's making the sport better.
San Jose Spiders knocked off Los Angeles last week. Seattle Cascades got the big win in San Francisco. So with those top three, you've had San Jose win at Seattle by 1, and you've had Seattle win at San Francisco by 1. And while San Diego and Vancouver are struggling to get wins, pretty incredible finish last week with Morgan Hibbert catching a game-winning scuba in overtime at the buzzer to beat San Diego. Magical moment out west.
And it's really just surprising to see Vancouver at the bottom of those standings with such a long history of exceptional ultimate in that city. Moving on.
In the Midwest, Minnesota's at 5-0. Madison and Pittsburgh, they're playing tonight. We'll get you an update on that shortly. Detroit, Indy, and Chicago at the bottom of that division. And in the East, you can see everyone has at least 2 losses. DC Breeze hosting Montreal this weekend. New York back in action as well, as they'll take on Montreal tomorrow. Last week in the AUDL, Week 7 was as memorable as any we have seen, especially with the Dallas Roughnecks seeing their first 2 defeats. We'll show you some of the top plays from Week 7 in the AUDL when we come back. 12-10, your score at the half here in Jacksonville, the Cannons by 2.
should expire here. Hold on. Wow, this might change. That was a great throw. They can tip it. Oh, somebody credit card comes down with it. Oh my gosh.
Hammer to the end zone, layout catch for the score.
That was a great grab, wow. As I said before, it's always tough to catch those.
Quiet crowd here in Montreal, and a layout Callahan! Oh my!
You don't see that often. Wow, that was an amazing play.
Coffin. Sense the double team coming. Helton looking long for Nethercutt. Nethercutt keeps it alive to Allen, the greatest.
Number 5, Ultimate Frisbee, deep pass, John Nethercutt. Oh, look at that, that is cheeky. Throws a little lateral back in. It's known as the greatest in Ultimate, but you knew that already. It's also known as number 5 here on Top Plays.
Welcome back to Jacksonville, Florida. About 4 minutes away from the start of the second half. The Cannons lead the Flyers 12-10. And while there was stretches of sloppiness in that first half, there was plenty of highlights as well. Jacksonville finding Tyler Kunsa and Michael Fairley for multiple goals. And Noah Saul getting the scoring started for the Flyers, coming down from North Carolina today. Goose Helton, by his standards, I think had a quiet first half. Dave Snoke going over the top to Jacob Mao, who had a couple of goals. This Jacksonville team made a bunch of plays. Bobby Lay, very steady in the handler set. And Cole Sullivan, whereas we maybe expected him to do more work downfield, he's been in the backfield a bunch, and it's paid dividends for the Cannons.
You know, not playing his typical style where he's throwing lots and lots of long shots, but definitely facilitating his other handlers and working the disc around.
We'll take a quick timeout. When we return, second half action between Jacksonville and Raleigh. The winner of this game will be in first in the AUDL South.
Early recognition is critical. Teaches middle school PE classes about ultimate Frisbee and cancer symptom awareness.
We're a registered nonprofit that advocates for an active, healthy lifestyle, body awareness, and speaking up if something is wrong.
Skills that when it comes to cancer can help save a life. Ultimate is a fast-paced team sport that's self-refereed, non-contact, and co-ed.
Spirit of the game is the foundation of Ultimate. That means we communicate respectfully, we're fair-minded, and we enjoy the game.
Ultimate is accessible to everyone. All you need is a Frisbee and some friends. Our team of coaches is made up of experienced and passionate leaders from the Ultimate community.
We can come to your middle school and run your PE classes for the day. And if we're not in your area yet, we'll send you our clinic in a box, where we give you the resources to run your own.
We are Eric!
And we want to work with you and your school.
Jacksonville with a 2-score lead as we get start for the third quarter here at the Bowles School. Chris LaRocque's been on the other side of this rivalry. In the Raleigh huddle, you've got Matt Bode, who's been in the Jacksonville huddle before. Obviously, the head coach of the Cannons, Tuba, has tons of North Carolina Ultimate roots. And while this game has been, I think, pretty spirited for the most part, there hasn't been anything overly dirty that you would accuse either team of. There's an intensity about this game that you can feel even from up here.
Right, and you know, I think one of the things that we've noticed from Tuba and the Jacksonville Flyers in general,
the Jacksonville Cannons.
I'm sorry, the Jacksonville Cannons, we expected them to come out with a tremendous amount of emotional energy, and so far, they've kind of kept it under wraps.
Which is what you said was really important they do.
Right, but to see them do it is impressive. You know, under the circumstances, you know, your rival coming to town in a game to decide possibly home field advantage for the playoffs.
On this O-line, without Freystadter, without Langdon, there have been some mistakes, but they've also scored very quickly, several times.
You know, talking about the first half and talking about what's been going well for Raleigh and what's been going well for Jacksonville, you know, it's important to note what hasn't really been going well for Raleigh, and that's really the play of their captain and hinge is Jonathan Nethercutt. We haven't really seen the same type of game out of him tonight.
A great throw at the end of the half, but he has had multiple turnovers uncharacteristically. Nordgren is on lay to begin the second half.
And that's an interesting matchup. Nordgren likes to poach the lane a little bit, but he also has a little bit of length to him and a quickness that can really fluster some handlers.
Husted back to lay, who's basically been every other so far this point. Now Sullivan back, looking Lay's way. year ago at this time, Bobby Lay's Callahan video was in the mix. It's a great time for ultimate content. Allen thought he had a D, but it was kept alive.
You know, Jacksonville not getting a lot from their downfield cutters. A lot of stagnation in the stack, and
Liam Searles Bowes comes up with the D.
that was the second floaty crossfield flick that Jacksonville threw for a swing pass. They paid the price on it.
Cisco takes the reset. Noah Saul was hit by Sullivan. He'll take the free 10 yards.
Both teams having some difficulty working it to that far sideline. Up here in the booth, it's a little bit difficult for us to fully understand the impact of the wind, but it seems to be having effect on those backhands across field.
Saul's throw floating on Searles Bowes, and now Sullivan launching the backhand deep. Jordan Huston shy of the end zone. He gets rid of it before the stall, and it's picked off. Nathan Goff came soaring in, and Huston did not even see him. Tough red zone mistake. Richardson takes the easy gimme to Nordgren.
Coach Benson has to be reeling after that crossfield throw.
What was interesting, Huston didn't immediately recognize that he wasn't in the end zone. And yet the stall count begins as soon as he has caught the disc. It's not when he gets his pivot foot set. So by the time he get the pivot set, it was around 3 or 4, and I thought he was going to get stalled.
You know, you hate to use a timeout that early in the game, but sometimes that can be the difference between keeping that momentum going into the second half.
Well, Raleigh takes its first time out in the second half. This point has been going on more than 3 minutes, and the Flyers will get the offense out there as they trail by 2. You know, sometimes, we saw it last week, Raleigh scored 32 goals in a 32-25 victory. There were 57 goals in 48 minutes. When you have a couple points that last 3-4 minutes, all of a sudden the game shrinks on you.
And as a player, it's really tough to recover because in these AUDL games, you might only have a minute between leaving the field and getting back out there. And in those points where you're out there running around for 3 to 4 minutes, you're just getting dog tired.
Jacksonville's D-line led by LaRock and Freystadter and Polk. St. John's will be on the mark. Noah Saul has to be one of the most versatile players in the league. It seems like he's out there every O point and every D point.
He definitely is accustomed to playing both directions. You know, he's got amazing footwork. And while sometimes his throws get him into trouble, more often than not, he's able to find his man.
To Bode. To Fairfax. Nethercutt. Jacksonville making things tough downfield. To the break side. What a shot by Nethercutt.
And you see a little bit of trash talk coming from Nethercutt there.
Officials are discussing, and it looks like the referees are indicating an official timeout to figure this out. Justin Allen's like, I caught it, I was in the end zone. Why haven't I celebrated?
Referees trying to get this call right.
It's a nice throw by Nethercutt. And he certainly caught the disc in the end zone. The question was,
maybe a push-off,
maybe a whistle before then. And they are going to take the goal off the board. It's still 12-10.
And I'll tell you, that's the last thing Nethercutt wants, is to have the disc back in his hands. Well,
so they've called offensive pass interference against Raleigh, which is a turnover. So what a change of events. Jacksonville will have the disc. What a wacky first point of the second half this has been. Helton on the mark. And now these referees just need to get this game moving along. Everybody's getting frustrated. Players, coaches, viewers, broadcasters, fans, peanut guy. Got a good peanut guy here in Jacksonville. Here we go. St. John's to LaRock. Thought about a deep shot to Freistatter, but they had Fairfax pinching off. Ryan Chart was open underneath because Bode was hanging out deep, and Bode nearly got the hand block, but he may have blocked a little too much hand along with the disc.
This is about to get chippy. You know, this point feels like the match that just got thrown onto the kindling for these two teams.
With some lighter fluid as well.
Misha's hard to stop in this space.
LaRock to Polk, off the hands of Polk. Wow. Raleigh takes it the other way. Bode hits Allen. Mitchell. Bode. Nethercutt. And Helton looking Mitchell's way, and that's incomplete.
And just when Raleigh looked like they were going to right the ship, another unforced turnover. Granted, there was pressure on the play, but Tuba getting his offense out there.
And now the second timeout of the point. Jacksonville takes it this time, and this is starting to feel like it could be the point of the match. If Jacksonville can outlast Raleigh and punch in and go up by 3, who knows how much time will be remaining in the quarter when that happens.
Especially because Raleigh has their offensive unit out there. So those guys are going to have to walk right back out on the line after just playing for the last 5 minutes.
Fairley, Gibson, Lay, Kunsa, Catron, and Huston. The 7-man unit for Jacksonville. Certainly a lot at stake for both of these teams. Jacksonville, it's a tough game at Atlanta next Saturday night, and then at Raleigh the following week. Still road games for Jacksonville. At Atlanta, at Raleigh again, at Dallas, and at Austin. They need to get a W tonight on their home field. Their only loss this year has come here at the Bulls School at the hands of these Flyers.
And Raleigh once again giving up the backhand, yet making the swings across the field difficult.
Great effort, but it lands on the turf, incomplete. Looking long. Schmidt adjusts, makes the catch by the pylon. Gets the reset, and Raleigh punches it in. Evan Howie to David Richardson after a point that lasts about 5 3/4 minutes, or We're almost midway through this third quarter, and Raleigh's within one.
And you said it, Evan. That is the type of point that can completely change the momentum going into the end of this third quarter and for the rest of this game. Obviously, this next point for Jacksonville is critical for their offensive unit to get out there and get a hold. I'm sure this is one of those moments where Coach Tuba's, telling his guys, take a deep breath.
Well, both of the offenses have to be a little flustered right now because each of them has had many chances over the past 5 and change of game action, and it's the defenses that have been in control.
And as we look out on the field, whereas in the first half that flag was blowing steady, now there is absolutely no wind in the stadium.
We've seen that before here in Jacksonville. The wind dies down as the night goes on.
You called it.
Jacksonville across midfield quickly. Good pressure on the under, but the Cannons keeping possession.
And Raleigh smells blood in the water right now. And you can just see they have ramped up the defensive intensity.
LaRocque marked by Howie. Kunsa swings it for Lay. Looking to the end zone. Kunsa gets there.
I love that throw by Lay.
Kunsa over Searles Bowes for the contested score for the Cannons.
Puts the outside in backhand out to space around the defender where only his man is able to get it. Great awareness by Lay, knowing where the defender had the possibility to get to. It's a little bit like a putt in disc golf.
Well, Bobby Lay is the type of player that this Jacksonville team really is needed. A guy who can be an anchor. While Cole Sullivan put up record-breaking numbers last year, I think even he's admitted that that's probably not his natural position.
If we're going to draw a parallel from the Raleigh Flyers, he kind of reminds me of a guy like Dave Snoke. Just steady Eddie, going to get the disc and distribute it where it needs to go. Keep the offense moving.
With all due respect to Snoke, who I love, Lay has about 13, 14, maybe 15 years on Snoke in the youth category. That disc caught in the end zone by Jacob Mao, who's having himself a night. So after the interminable point, both offenses hold quickly. This time, Bode to Mao.
And Jacob Mao here, it seems like one of those guys that just gives just enough effort to get the job done, right? He's not sprinting full out, getting to the spot and then waiting for the throw. He's using his ability to read the disc to get himself into position and time his jump to where it's easy for him. And he made it look easy on that throw or on that catch.
Jacksonville scored in 45 seconds. Raleigh responded in 21 seconds. 13-12, the Cannons with a 1-score lead and the disc.
And it's good to see both of these teams sort of calm down just a little bit after that first point out of half.
Lay a good bluff, knifes it through, and a pick was called downfield against Jacksonville.
Pick whistled on Jacksonville.
Picks so hard to see in the AUDL with so much movement with the downfield cutters.
Jacksonville looking around, there's no call. It will be Raleigh's disc. A chance for the Flyers to tie things up. late here in the third quarter.
And they need to get the disc off of that sideline.
Great D.
And you got Misha Freystadter running wide open.
It's actually Fairley, who looks a lot like Freystadter. Same college, similar size. Fairley dunks it as Jacksonville capitalizes. But it's the O-line for Jacksonville, and Fairley's Freystadter-esque D on the mark. The reset was not easy for the Flyers, and the Cannons capitalized.
Should we say similar gangle?
That's fair. Big play by Fairley to firm up the lead when it looked like Raleigh was set to tie it up. Just got a piece of that floater intended for Saul.
Tough inside-out break throw by Justin Allen, deciding to go with his left hand there instead of reaching around and throwing the outside-in backhand, allowing Fairley to just get a little piece of that disc, which was enough to cause the D.
Snoke picks up for the Flyers on offense. Fairfax takes the sure thing in the under. Helton quickly to another cut. Terrence Mitchell had a couple drops early in the season, Mitchell did, and has really dialed in his focus over the past few weeks. Raleigh assistant coach David Allison was telling me before the game he wanted to give Terrence the start tonight. It's kind of a reward for how well he's played, both in practice and in games recently. And then that shot intended for Mitchell. That time it was Freystadter. Jacksonville by 2 with the disc.
You jinxed him. Although I wouldn't call that a drop.
That wasn't on Mitchell by any means. Contact on the mark.
And once again, another moment for Jacksonville to go up 3 minutes left in the quarter.
Nothing's been easy for the Cannons tonight. Carlton, Perales, Bullock.
Jacksonville needs to work hard to keep it off of this close sideline. As soon as they're throwing the disc over here,
that disc hanging up, Fairfax going for it. What will the officials decide here? It's going to be Jacksonville's disc and a 10-yard contact penalty.
And you see the Raleigh Flyers D unit content to let Jacksonville throw it over to this backhand side where they're just wrapping them and not allowing easy dumps.
Freystadter just shy of the goal line. Double team comes. Cross field to space. Can he get there? Yes! McElvey punches it in for the Jacksonville break.
And you wonder now that the wind has died down a little bit if we're going to see the field opened up a little bit more with some of those cross-field hammers. We really haven't seen the hammer pulled out that often in this game, which we both know guys like Nethercutt and Sullivan want to throw.
A break for the Cannons after the Freystadter D. This disc right here was so close for Fairfax.
On the replay, did he have that?
It's really hard to tell.
I think we might take if we took another look at that, I think Fairfax had that D.
He was higher, but he didn't have position.
It looked like he stopped rotation through the middle of the receiver's hands.
Cannons able to punch it in. They're back up by 3. Dustin Travaglini launches another pull for Jacksonville. This is certainly one of the lowest scoring games these two teams have ever played against one another. This third quarter has only seen 5 goals. 3 for the Cannons. Looking for Cisco. Shane Cisco got it.
And that's one of the things I love about Shane Cisco. You see the disc out in front of him there. Instead of diving with 2 hands, he goes for the pancake just to make sure. I mean, we talk about his speed, but the selflessness to, you know, put your body on the ground just to be sure. You know, had the opportunity to play with Shane Cisco in Columbia, and first point of the very first game, I throw him a crossfield hammer. He lays out exactly like that and takes off about a centimeter of skin on his entire shin, which he got up and it was just hanging from his leg. And he had to play the rest of the weekend like that.
Maybe a better throw would have saved his skin.
Better read, maybe?
Maybe.
No,
all in the eye of the
it was a
beholder,
knife.
I suppose.
It was complete, right?
You guys are trying to give him a chance to show off, make a play.
Let's just say the turf on those fields was not quite the same as what these guys are playing on.
Junky look here from Raleigh leads to a D. Justin Allen comes flying in. Raleigh with under a minute to go in the third. Nethercutt playing on the defensive line, and it pays off. Nethercutt with his second straight assist, his 4th of the night. Flyers within 1.
Interesting adjustment, Nethercutt on the D-line. Do you think that's an adjustment that Mike DeNardis may have made to relieve some of the pressure off of his star handler?
Well, the D-line obviously has had trouble converting breaks here in the quarter. They've had tons of chances.
Well, point being that, you know, if Nutt's out there on D, Freistatter is also going to be out on D, and so they're not going to be out there at the same time.
Goff pays it off. 15-14 with 47 on the clock. Nethercutt still out there. Allen still out there. And another junky look. They've got Goff just hanging back as a deep, and now it looks like the Flyers will match up one-on-one downfield.
Jacksonville not really using the whole width of the field. Now they get a swing off. And you see how just getting that one swing opens up the field dramatically.
Great bid, but Fairley could not come up with it. The disc rolls out of bounds, so the clock stops. And the athletic trainer will check on the injured Central Florida Cannon.
And that's one of those situations where Fairley is wide open. And the thrower is just trying to throw him into the end zone instead of just throwing it to him in that situation.
Would have been a great catch. Instead, about 11 seconds on the clock for Raleigh to go the other way. LaRocque's in the game, replacing Fairley.
And let's see what Jonathan Nethercutt does now that he doesn't have the pressure of Misha Freistatter on every possession.
Freistatter did come out there as well. He's downfield, kind of playing it deep. They've added a few seconds to the clock. Now 15 in the quarter, and a chance for Raleigh, who was down 15-12, to get back into a tie game, and they'll be receiving at the start of the fourth. Fairfax. There was contact. They called it against Raleigh. No, it was a travel call. So Searles Bowes. Here you just don't want to make a critical mistake, right?
If I'm Jacksonville, I am fronting the crap out of the Flyers.
That disc hangs in the air and it's dropped. And Jacksonville takes a timeout. We'll see how much time they put on the clock. They're currently showing 0.7. But the Cannons, you know, on one hand, you want to save your timeout, and the other, you've got a chance to basically make one throw from the goal line for a key goal. You have to make that call.
I like that decision.
Without the timeout, there wouldn't have been enough time to get the disc, bring it to the goal line, and score. Careless drop from Schmidt. And this game takes another turn. This has been maybe the wildest quarter of the year in terms of the number of different turning points.
Opportunities, I think, is what you're looking for.
There have been so many.
Each team having tremendous amounts of opportunity to really take control of this game, and neither one really showing the ability, I guess, to make it happen. Certainly the lowest scoring AUDL game that I've ever been a part of.
They still have not changed the scoreboard here at the stadium. We are showing 2 seconds. The clock starts upon the release. So one quick throw out of the end zone could lead to another throw into the end zone. But I would guess that Sullivan will look into the end zone on this first throw. Richardson is on Freistatter in the middle. And Jacksonville, some indecision from the referees. Donardis saying that he was on the line, which would mean he's not in, but the referees reward the score on just a quick little dish to Bobby Lay. It's so hard to tell from that angle. Was that right foot on the line, or was it in the end zone? Of course, it's not like being out of bounds.
But time would have expired.
That's fair.
You know, maybe we'll get a little better look here.
They say it's a goal. 16-14, Jacksonville. Back up by 2. Back and forth we go. The Cannons and the Flyers into the fourth quarter when we come back.
Mazer with the flick huck looking for Stanley Peterson in the end zone. And Stanley with the layout grab.
Air Force One.
Just one close call after another down the stretch in that third quarter. Jacksonville able to punch it in. Sullivan to Lay as time expired. So now 12 minutes on the clock. The Cannons leading by 2 after that third quarter in which both teams scored 4 goals. It was 5-3 Jacksonville after one. 12-10 the Cannons at the half. And now 16-14 as we take the turn for home. Nethercutt, Bode, Saul, Mitchell, Fairfax, Justin Allen out there on offense, along with Goose Helton. Nice job by Bode setting up the under. Bode with the stall count rising. Just got it off to Mitchell. Saul marked by Sinjins. And Nethercutt now chased by Freystadter. Those are two of the top players in the league going head to head, and somehow Nethercutt came up with a disc. He looked back at Sinjins. Unbelievable. Nethercutt, it was actually Kerner, who looked like he was bearing down for the D, and somehow Nethercutt makes the catch and dishes for the score. How did he do that?
Well, he just found the disc in his hand, but you know, really the story of that play is a little bit of the showboating going on with Nethercutt there. You know, I think Jacksonville taking a lot of heat over the week for, you know, different levels of sportsmanship. Hard to argue that.
Look at that.
You know, and I think those two guys, you know, one of the things about Jonathan Nethercutt is, you know, he can always kind of give you a look, and you know that he loves you in the same vein that he's maybe putting one over on you.
5th assist of the night for Nethercutt, first of the no-look variety. Wow. Sullivan and Lay back in charge of the Jacksonville offense. Now this is the Cannons game, Taylor. They're at home. They've got a 1-goal lead. Their offense is on the field. Kind of similar to how their game against Dallas went, when Jacksonville led by 3 at the end of 3 and just hung on. Can they hang on again at home against the intense defensive pressure? In the end zone and caught. Bobby Lay can do it downfield too.
That was an impressive throw. Putting it way out in front of the receiver. Hung in the air. You thought Danny Schmidt might have a chance at this one. Didn't really quite get the lift I think he was hoping for.
Bobby Lay's got great bounce.
You know, we were talking about the close plays in that third quarter. I think we have a replay of Jacob Fairfax possibly getting that D. Let's see if we can't get a look at that.
Bobby Lay has scored the last 2 goals.
So we
This was back in the third quarter when they ruled it simultaneous possession, and yeah, you're absolutely right. You saw it, and it looked like Fairfax should have been credited with that D. Now, who knows if Raleigh would have been able to punch it in.
But just one of those close opportunities. You know, things haven't gone Raleigh's way for a few of those close calls tonight. That and including the last play of the third quarter.
Travaglini again with the pull. Nethercutt starts downfield in the horizontal stack with Helton in the middle, Mitchell and Fairfax on the outsides. And Snoke sets up Helton. Helton looking for Nethercutt. This disc hanging. Polk and Freystadter approaching. And Nethercutt should have had it.
You know, sometimes when you know a guy like Freystadter is barreling down on you.
Not to mention Polk.
Can get to the nerves, and you know, I think Jonathan Nethercutt was just surprised that, you know, he had a clean look at it.
That disc was juggled, but kept in bounds. 10 minutes to go, and the Cannons with a great opportunity that they just give away.
And I think that may have been a punt. High stall count, didn't want to turn it over close to their own end zone. Challenging the Raleigh O-line to work it 80 yards. And you see Fairfax kind of lining up almost in the backfield.
One of the things Raleigh has tried to do is prevent Jakeem Polk's insane vertical from lingering downfield. Right now, Fairfax coming under. Lieberman looked him off at first, and then Fairfax makes the really tough one-handed catch. And Jacob Fairfax invokes the integrity rule, saying that there was no foul after the catch.
And that might have just saved Jakeem Polk from being able to play the rest of this game.
I don't know if that would have been an unsportsmanlike, but certainly the referees might have seen it differently. That reset to about 4 members of the Flyers. A stall was called.
Stall on the Flyers. Cannons take over.
That was really quick.
And it feels like we're right back in that third quarter. Teams just trading gut punches. Points are not coming easy for either squad.
Another floaty disc. Tough grab and a foul will allow Jacksonville to center it.
Who do you see that's going to be in the front of the stack here?
Maybe the tallest guy in the field. Travaglini, surrounded, scoobers it to St. John's. Gigantic goal for the Jacksonville Cannons.
The end zone look that the Jacksonville Cannons present is difficult to stop. They're running essentially a zipper play from the front of the end zone. And, you know, you have to respect Freystadter in that situation. Just leave someone else open.
It was the stall of Fairfax that led to this chance. And Travaglini, cheeky. Cannons by 3. Quick update from elsewhere around the AUDL. The end of the third quarter in Madison. It's the Radicals 22, the Pittsburgh Thunderbirds 18. Good game going on there between those two Midwest Division powers. Final from earlier tonight, DC improved to 4-2 with a 23-20 win over Montreal. 6 blocks in that game for Rowan McDonald of the DC Breeze.
Impressive. Again, you've been all over Jacob Meow this game and having another impressive point. 5 or 6 touches for himself already.
And the Flyers sneak it through into the hands of Allen. An important hold, and most importantly, it came quickly in just about 30 seconds. Flyers with some work to do in the break department to get back in this.
You know, Evan, as ugly as this game has been at times, it certainly feels like it's going to come down to an epic finish.
Just seems like that's what these two teams do. The game when these squads matched up on April 15th was the rare exception. Before that April 15th meeting, the previous 6 meetings were decided by just 12 scores.
Don't be surprised if you see Coach Mike DeNardis start to try to take the clock out of this game, possibly throwing some roller pulls or possibly fronting a lot more, encouraging them to take deep shots.
Jacksonville has made a real concerted effort to not take the bait. And above all different things, the Cannons' composure, one of the stories of the night in terms of how impressive they have been and how willing they've been.
And I stand corrected. Raleigh's coming out and they're playing zone, which is just allowing Jacksonville to swing it at will. They can be as patient as they want here. Now, you don't talk about killing the clock with 6 minutes left, but you certainly want to be applying pressure, not hoping that the Cannons are going to make a mistake.
Jacksonville gets the quick swing to lay. When you're an offensive cutter downfield against the zone, sometimes you get kind of lulled to sleep by the slow movement in the handler core? We'll return to that in a moment. Trying to come back for the low backhand from Sullivan, and, well, Sullivan that time, perhaps an ill-advised shot.
Well, to answer your question, I'm always trying to stretch out the defense. So whether that means taking the deep out of position to where he can't guard the wings or the underneath players, or if I'm one of those wings, I'm trying to make the wing drop back to open up the poppers so that the handlers can move it around easier and hit those open unders. So it's all about creating space for the other guys on the field when you're in downfield cutter in the zone. Too often guys are trying to run toward the action, when in actuality a lot of times you just need to be stretching the field, expanding the looks that the offense can have.
A reminder of what's at stake tonight as we play with 6 minutes and 6 seconds left in the fourth quarter. The Cannons leading by 2, currently a half game behind Raleigh. Of course, Raleigh and Jacksonville will meet 2 more times, both in North Carolina. Jacksonville still has a trip to Dallas, not to mention a trip to Atlanta next week, and a trip to Austin in July as well. The Cannons have the toughest remaining schedule by a good margin, but who knows? Maybe they can rampage through that gauntlet of a schedule. And I don't think they're I don't think they're intimidated by that schedule at all. They're looking forward to it.
And we've seen Dallas is, not the healthiest team at this point. So the prospect of the Jacksonville Cannons going to Dallas and getting a win is very much on the table.
Tuba, Benson, Jaja.
How important is that Dallas-Madison game coming down the stretch?
Yeah, it's going to have serious ramifications in multiple divisions, which is one of the really cool things about the Cross Coast Challenge. That'll be our next AUDL Game of the Week broadcast 2 weeks from tonight at Breeze Stevens Field. Next week, USA Ultimates College Nationals will take center stage. Still a bunch of AUDL games to talk about. Here's Helton looking long. Bode in pursuit. Matt Bode makes the catch.
That was beautiful placement by Jonathan Helton, angling the disc with an inside-out backhand to the opposite side of the field. But by the time the defender knew that the disc was up, he was already out of position and wasn't able to make up that ground.
Kerner almost made up the gap, but Bode elevates. I mean, we've seen Jonathan Helton with these types of throws. He's got all the tools and a really intelligent player showing off the vision. Bode going up for the high point.
And Bode showing off the energy that Raleigh desperately needs to get themselves back into this game.
Bode 2 years ago scored 20 goals in 8 games in a Jacksonville jersey. Played for Charlotte last year and now on his 3rd team in the last 3 AUDL seasons in this South Division.
A nomad.
When the teams were warming up today, Matt Bode's former Charlotte teammate, now Raleigh teammate, Charlie Muniz, was warming up in a number 79 Matt Bode Jacksonville Cannons jersey. That disc hangs in the air, but LaRock able to make the catch and then lefties it to the end zone.
And that was a beautiful usage of the left hand You know, so many times we see guys trying to squeeze it in there, or even worse, you know, throw that very short field flick, and LaRock just, you know, no one's around, just flip the easy lefty backhand out to space.
So the Cannons back up by 2. Looking long to LaRock.
And if you're the Raleigh Flyers, you cannot be happy about the speed at which Jacksonville scored that look. I mean, yes, they're not taking a lot of time off the clock, but you just put your offense right back out there under the pressure of a 2-point game.
It was 2 years ago in Milwaukee when Chris LaRock was just an absolute stud at college nationals for Florida State, leading them to the semifinals, where they ran into Jonathan Nethercutt's North Carolina Dark Side squad. Helton, sure-handed on the under. The 2-time league MVP, first with the Indianapolis AlleyCats in 2012, and then with the Chicago Wildfire in 2013. Not too many people have more numbers in this league than Helton, who has been involved since the beginning. And he has gradually gained more and more respect for his versatile abilities. That shot looking for Nethercutt, and he's got it. With 4:19 to go, the Flyers are back within 1.
And, you know, you mentioned Jonathan Helton. One of the things that he does so well is find space on the field. You know, all of the attention is, you know, on this backhand side, and Goose works his way over to the break side, knowing that Snoke is looking to switch the field, and one hammer later, we're in the end zone.
Nice of Helton to let Nethercutt catch it inbounds this time, as opposed to forcing him to lay out of bounds like he did last week in the win over Dallas.
That was a spectacular play, wasn't it?
You know the story of how Helton got the nickname Goose?
I don't.
When he was in college, he used to change his voicemail all the time on his cell phone and just made all these dumb, silly rhymes. And his teammates started calling him Mother Goose because of it. And obviously it was shortened to Goose, and the nickname has certainly stuck.
When you mentioned he got the nickname in college, my mind immediately went somewhere else, but that is very PG.
Yeah, it's a family-friendly story. Don't know if the voicemails were always family-friendly, but Goose is a family-friendly guy. We're under 4 minutes, and Raleigh's got a chance to tie it up. Schmidt between the hash marks. Searles Bose. This is Goff. Needles it through to tie this thing up at 19. And how about that point? Schmidt, Searles Bose, Goff. Not the names you necessarily think about when you talk about the Flyers, but those guys, trusted by their teammates, get the job done for the break.
Danny Schmidt, a standout player for North Carolina State University.
Searles Bose, a senior in high school, and then Nathan Goff out of the University of South Carolina, was injured most of last year with the Charlotte Express. Schmidt able to pay it off. The Raleigh native, 24 years of age, ties it up.
It doesn't seem fair that you should be able to play this game in high school, does it?
It just makes me jealous of all these kids. I was chatting with 18-year-old John Randolph out in Seattle a few weeks back and just told him, look, I'm jealous of you. I mean, I wouldn't have been as good as you are anyway, but if I had a little more practice before I was learning how to throw a flick in college, it would be different. This disc hanging up in the air. LaRock, the intended target, but it's Saul who knocks it away for the Flyers. And all of a sudden, Jacksonville needs to defend its turf to prevent Raleigh from taking a lead.
And Jacksonville cannot be happy. Tuba has to be reeling off of that because that's the style that they have been playing before recently.
Sullivan thought he had a Callahan. Instead, it's a foul.
And the game gets close, and all of a sudden, Jacksonville's going back to their Huck game.
And the throw from Searles Bose went off before the whistle. That's technically a delay of game, so the 10 yards Raleigh just gained will be nullified.
And he got bailed out by that call because that was about to be a turnover.
Another classic brewing between these two teams that, quite frankly, don't like each other that much. Searles Bose gets the reset. Richardson gives it right back. Goff on the under, takes a stumble. Howie continues, gets it back from Nordgren. Searles Bose. Open on the far side of the field, Raleigh on the verge, and Raleigh in the lead. It's the Flyers' first lead since it was 3-2.
And you just get the feeling of how deflating that is for Jacksonville. You play such a composed game, to use their word. And then with 2 minutes left, the disc and the lead, you put up a throw like that on the first pass. Unbelievably poor decision making by the Jacksonville Cannons.
Jacksonville fans certainly frustrated, although she looks like she's having a pretty good time. Well, can the Cannons recover? Still plenty of time on the clock. Neither team has a timeout. That's worth noting. Feels like all the timeouts were used on the first point of the half, which lasted about 45 minutes.
It's certainly not panic time for the Jacksonville Cannons, but it is the moment of truth.
Freystadter's out there on offense. Here's Kunsa on the under. Catron to LaRock. And contact there. Sullivan rips it away.
And you wonder here if they don't go back to their bread and butter. Sullivan to Freystadter.
The clock is ticking. Doesn't stop until the whistle with 30 seconds to go. LaRock marked by Hartzog. Tough catch by Sullivan.
The problem downfield is, as much as Freystadter's trying to get open, he's got Fairfax, and he does.
Freystadter is the answer. And we're tied at 20 with just about a minute left in the fourth quarter. Good bid by Hartzog, but he fell just short. And it's LaRock to Freystadter.
And several of the Raleigh Flyers trying to get on this O-line possession.
Well, there's a lot to digest right now. If you're Raleigh, are you thinking about the clock at all? Do you want to go for the last shot? Or do you want to score in the normal flow as quickly as you can? They have updated the clock. There's 47 seconds left.
You know, I think if you're Raleigh, you're just trying to execute the offense, not think about the clock until it gets to around 10 seconds.
Not before that, not 20 or 30?
Well, if you start thinking about the clock at that point, you might be making some decisions that are not within the flow of what you've been doing all game. So you don't want to be changing the throws and the decision making at that point. Besides, 10 seconds in the AUDL is a long time. You can get several throws off.
Neither team has a timeout. 47 seconds remaining in regulation. Snoke needs someone. Finds Mao. What a game Jacob Mao has had for Raleigh tonight.
And Mao drawing Jakeem Polk on the mark.
Mitchell to Saul. There was contact. The clock will stop. And it was contact against Raleigh. So Mitchell's going to go 10 yards in the wrong direction for the Flyers. 24 seconds to Nethercutt. Bode trying to set up the deep look. Nethercutt resets for Snoke. Down to 15 seconds. Jakeem Polk comes soaring in, almost got it. Somehow Mitchell held on.
Unbelievable grab by Mitchell.
With 4 seconds to go, Mitchell's throw to Helton. With 1 second to go, Helton gets it off and into the end zone. Jacob Mao wins the game for the Raleigh Flyers.
Incredible game by Jacob Mao, punctuated with that buzzer beater.
The Cannons are stunned as the Flyers win it at the buzzer. Helton to Mao. Unbelievable. The Flyers win it on the road here in Jacksonville. And Raleigh is the South Division team that remains in first place as the Flyers improve to 7-1. Jacksonville loses at home to Raleigh for the second time this year. The contrast of emotions in that lineup. Can't even imagine.
We have a good view of the stands here, and people are just in their seats, stunned at the events of that last point.
Wow.
The catch by Terrence Mitchell. I thought for sure Jakeem Polk had that D.
A great victory for the Flyers and a heartbreaking loss for the Cannons. What a night. Raleigh 21, Jacksonville 20. Bobby Lay had an excellent evening for the Cannons. Justin Allen making plays on both sides of the disc. And this no-look assist from Jonathan Nethercutt. He makes jaw-dropping plays like that regularly. And yet it all came down to the very, very end. Jonathan Helton to Jacob Mao as Raleigh wins it at the buzzer. For Taylor Pope and our entire Fulcrum Media-led crew, Evan Lepler saying so long from Jacksonville. The dramatic conclusion, Mao wins it for the Flyers on the road.